UFC, where heavyweight Mark Hunt is not pleased in the aftermath of UFC 200, rightfully so. Hunt lost to Brock Lesnar. Now, since then, he's had 2 drug tests come back positive, including one administered the night of the fight. Since, Hunt has championed the idea of Lesnar not getting to keep any of his at least $2.5 million earned for the fight and remains angry about the situation. Here's a quote from him. "You've been cheating. You lose all your fight earnings, and since it was cheating, you get fined. You get sued, and you get a fine. You're going straight to court, criminal court, because what you've done is an offense. That's what I want done. That these guys who are cheating don't have more incentive to do it because they do it for financial gain. If you take it all away, they get nothing." Max, interesting point here. Do you agree with Hunt?
Hunt is 100% right about this. 100% right. And what I don't understand is in our sporting culture, we're so angry at baseball players who juice. The only person they're hurting, the integrity of the game, well, they're hurting the honest player, right? They're cheating them out of a job in a sense. And that's, I'm not like saying that that's not significant, but it's not a full contact sport. It's not a combat sport. We seem to have a much lower threshold for this kind of cheating, which is actually dangerous in full contact sport like the NFL, where because of their size, we're like, well, you know, they're all on it, or so, you know, or a combat sport like mixed martial arts, where these guys are taking their lives into their hands. They are literally, Brock Lesnar is 265 pounds, and he is in there to separate you from your senses. That's the point. So Hunt is 100% right about this. How do you stop it from happening? Well, in this case, the issue is if your opponent gets caught ahead of time, you lose your payday sometimes. They can't find a replacement. That's it. You've trained all this time. He cheated, so you're out the payday. In this case, he actually got his payday, Hunt, because they went through with the fight, but he lost. He was taking shots from a 265-pound juiced-up monster. And I think the way you stop that in its tracks, because after all, why are they doing it? He's right, to gain a competitive advantage. The way you why do they want a competitive advantage? Because their bottom line is affected. If you say, hey, check this out, 100% of your purse is now going to the other guy, watch how fast that stuff gets taken out of the sport. Like that. It's going to be gone overnight. If they do serious testing like VADA testing, where they actually catch people, and now because of the existence of VADA, which is a very serious testing agency, now other testing agencies are starting to actually catch people because there's competition. They've been shamed into doing it. You actually catch people, and 100%, Stephen A., of their money goes to the other guy. Watch what happens.
Well, first of all, for the purposes of this show, obviously it's good for us to disagree because it is a debate show and we embrace debate. That's what we do. But there's certain situations that it's not about that at all. It's just about, you know, listen, you got to come to an agreement on something sometimes. And this is clearly one of those situations where we completely agree. I completely agree with Mark Hunt, particularly in a pugilistic sport. You walk into the octagon just like you walk into a boxing ring, you walk into a football field. Your life is in danger. It's that violent. And so when you look at it from that perspective, anything that buffers you, that strengthens you, that gives you an unfair competitive physical advantage, is something that simply can't be tolerated because, again, you have the license to assault another human being. Yeah. You can almost make the argument that rather than just confiscating 100% of one's salary, somebody should be arrested if found cheating, simply because you're endangering the life of another human being by doing so. That's how serious that it is. And it also makes you look at Major League Baseball, but in a split kind of way, in a dual kind of way. On one hand, you know, it makes you look at them and say the rapt attention we pay to the attention that has been brought to that sport due to PED use seems somewhat ridiculous when you're not harming anybody. You're just padding and buffering numbers. But on the other hand, you also say to yourself, that damn Players Association for the MLB does a hell of a job, because the way former Commissioner Bud Selig was fixated on eradicating PEDs from the sport, one would surmise that he would have been someone in complete favoring of confiscating 100% of one's salary. When Alex Rodriguez ended up getting suspended, and it ended up costing him anywhere from $20 to $40 million, there are people that looked at that and said, Good. He deserves that. The problem was he was in the midst of a contract that still owed him about $100 million. Okay, so it wasn't like he was going to be at the poorhouse anytime soon. And so you look at it from that perspective, and you just say to yourself, listening to Mark Hunt, he makes a point, which is why I brought it up, and I wanted to do this subject. He makes a point not just about the UFC, but about any sport, as it pertains to performance-enhancing use.
But I think we're on the same page.
Perhaps if you confiscated all their money,
right,
all their money, you could eradicate this problem.
But I think we're on the same page in terms of the difference between the violent sports where you take your life into your hands, on the one hand, a greater moral, a greater ethical, certainly, and also certainly a greater moral infraction than a sport where you are simply, not that this is a small thing, but cheating someone out of a job, essentially. You know, there have been allegations that everyone in track and field, you know, on a certain Olympic team is juicing.
Russian.
There was, including, listen, I've heard allegations from people in track and field, trainers, that who say there's not even anyone in the competition, period, who's not doing it. And of course, that's bad. It's bad to cheat. However, if you're just running in a straight line, you know, it's a lot different than when you're running in a straight line towards someone else who is running at a straight line toward you, like in football, or when you're a 265-pound beast wailing on somebody in order to win a fight.
Or devastating leg kicks to their head.
Right.
Well, the only other thing I'd like to add to that point, Max and Molly, is this. We constantly talk about the actual athletes. Let's not gloss over ownership and organizations who actually benefit. A lot of people accuse baseball of turning a blind eye and a deaf ear to steroid use until it was brought to the attention of Congress and others, okay? They felt like that because guess what? You know, everybody loved the long ball, as they say, and because of it resurrected the sport of baseball after the cancellation of the World Series in 1994. That's partly why
100%.
Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa was perceived as having a pass, because it resurrected the sport of baseball. Well, that means baseball benefited, not just those individuals. So what was the incentive to expose them? If you've got stuff going on in the UFC, I certainly don't want to accuse my man Dana White of anything egregious, because we know that this. I love this man as president of the UFC. I think he's done a phenomenal job. But let's not gloss over the fact that, again, do you think they would have preferred that John Bones Jones didn't get busted for some kind of use before his fight against Daniel Cormier last month? In a perfect world, that fight would have still went on, and the winner would have won, the loser would have lost, and everybody went on and got paid.
I do think it would be in the UFC's best interest, in boxing's best interest. I mean, I'm sure Dana wants no use at all in the league, and others start to juice because this other guy's juicing. I need to level the playing field. So you want to give incentive to, you know, if you get caught, to really come down hard. So there isn't that kind of incentive to cheat. But you're right. In baseball, anywhere where offense is positively affected, of course the league's like that, because when offense is positively effective, you put the meat in the seats. That's always the way it's been.
Yeah.
And for UFC specifically, obviously you hit them where it hurts. These guys aren't making the same kind of money, most of them, majority of NFL players, NBA players, so you're really hurting them who are putting their bodies on the line for, as we saw, Brock made $2.5 million. Most guys aren't making close to that for those fights.